Where I come from, the man we worry about is the one who will not take help. If your neighbor's roof goes, and he tells you he has it handled, that is not strength to us. That is a warning. It means something has gone wrong in him, or between him and the church, because a plain man is supposed to be able to accept a hand as easily as he gives one. We raise our children to say yes when help is offered. It is not politeness. It is the whole machine we live inside. I have been thinking for a while now about what that would do to one of our men in a prison. Because I have listened to men who did long sentences describe how the worst thing in that building gets started, and it is not a fight, and it is not a weapon. It is a man being generous to you in your first week. I want to walk through how it works, in the 4 steps men describe, and then I want to show you exactly where an Amish man would fall through each one. Because the reason is the same reason every time, and it is not weakness. It is that we were built for a different world, and the same trait that holds a district together would hand him over in there. The first step is a gift. Men who spent years inside will tell you the same thing about the most dangerous person on a block. He does not look dangerous. He is the warmest man there. Coffee and soups in his locker, a soft voice and endless patience, and he spends it on whoever came in newest and most alone. He works fast, and the speed is the whole tell. A decent man inside gives a newcomer room and time and lets him find his own footing. The other kind is in a hurry because he is racing the man's own adjustment. He wants the trap closed before the new fellow has built anything of his own. So a soup arrives on a bad night, a pack of stamps because the man cannot call home, shoes because his feet are bare on a filthy floor. Every one of them small, every one of them real, every one genuinely needed by somebody who is drowning. And no price is ever named. That is the craft of it. A debt with no number on it can never be paid, and it can always be called bigger later. Now put a plain man in front of that. Everything I have described is what my life looks like on an ordinary week. When a man's barn burns, 300 of us come and put up a new one in a day, and no bill is ever sent. When somebody is sick, the neighbors do his milking without being asked. When a family has a child in a hospital, the district pays it, and there is no paperwork and no interest, and nobody keeps a running total. Our whole life is a ledger of favors nobody writes down and nobody ever settles. That is not a flaw in it. That is what it is. So a stranger hands an Amish man a kindness in his first week, and every instinct in him says, this is how the world works, and a decent man accepts. He would not just take the soup. He would take it warmly and thank the man properly and think well of him and remember it. He has been trained since he could walk to read generosity as safety. In there, generosity is the hook. And here is the part that would fool him worse than it fools other men. He would think he knew what was happening. He would think he had been placed among people who look after each other, which is the only kind of place he has ever lived. The Englishman walks in suspicious. Our man walks in recognizing something and being glad about it, and being wrong. The second step is that your world gets smaller, and it feels like a friendship deepening. The generous man starts wanting time. He wants you at his table and not the others. He wants to be the one who explains the building to you, the one who tells you which men to keep away from. He is jealous of your other company, though he would never use that word. Men describe the test for this, and it is a good one. Widen your world in front of him and watch his face. A real friend is glad when you have more people. The other kind gets quiet and finds small reasons those other men are not to be trusted and steers you back. A plain man would fail that test too, and for a reason that has nothing to do with judgment. He is used to belonging to one body, one district, one church, one set of families, and everything comes through it. He does not shop around for company. He is not accustomed to keeping a wide, loose net of acquaintances because at home he does not need one. He needs the district, and the district is everything. So when one man starts acting like the whole district, That would feel to him like the world becoming right again, not like a fence going up. And by then, he would be genuinely alone in a way the other men on that tier would not be. No telephone at home. His people cannot be called of an evening. Visits mean hiring a driver for a long trip, and there are only so many of those in a year. Letters, and letters only. A man who is starving for his people is exactly who this works on, and he would be starving worse than anyone in that building. The third step is the rescue, and it is the dirtiest thing in the whole business. At some point, trouble arrives. A debt appears out of nowhere. A man he has never wronged turns hostile. Something goes bad on the tier, suddenly and for no reason he can trace. And the generous man steps in and puts it right and says, "Stay close to me and nothing touches you." Men who watch this happen say the same thing about it. Sometimes the trouble he rescues you from is trouble he arranged. One hand makes the fear, and the other offers the shelter, and both hands belong to the same man. The target reads it as the world being dangerous, and this one fellow being the only safe harbor in it, which is precisely what he was meant to read. Now, an Amish man would refuse the protection itself, and here he is stronger than most. He cannot have another man fight for him. That is not preference, it is doctrine. Non-resistance is not only a rule about your own hands, it is a rule about violence done on your behalf. A man who lets another break somebody for his sake has done the thing and added dishonesty to it. Our people have died holding that, and I do not say that lightly. In the First World War, our young men were beaten in army camps for refusing to drill, and 4 Hutterite brothers were chained in a dark cell at Alcatraz, and 2 of them died at Leavenworth. Not one of them put the uniform on. So he would not take the protection. Good. But that is not the same as being safe, because the debt is already there. He has been accepting kindnesses for weeks by then and thinking well of the man the whole time. He would refuse the shield and still owe, and owing is the thing the whole machine runs on. He would have declined the one part he could see and kept the part he could not. The fourth step is the one that closes the door, and it is the one I most want to talk about, because it is the only step where being Amish makes it worse rather than just different. The shame. Men who watch this describe how a person gets walked into believing he chose it, that the debts were his own doing, that the arrangement was somehow agreed to, that speaking up would expose him rather than the man who trapped him. And that feeling is manufactured on purpose from the very first soup, because somebody who believes he is partly to blame will never tell anyone. Silence is the fuel. That is the whole engine. Now understand what an Amish man carries into that. We are a people who examine ourselves. Twice a year before communion, every member goes through a season of self-searching, and each one is asked whether he is at peace with God and with every brother and sister in the district. We are taught from small that pride is the great sin, and that a man should look first at his own fault before he looks at anybody else's. That is a good and holy discipline in a community of decent people who are all doing it together. Hand that same discipline to a man who has been groomed, and it becomes a weapon pointed inward. He would search himself for what he did wrong. He would find something, because a man looking hard enough always finds something. And he would decide it was his own fault for accepting, and he would carry it quietly, because carrying things quietly is also something we admire. And there is a harder thing I have to say, and I will say it because leaving it out would make this a comfortable video instead of a true one. Our people have not always handled this well. When somebody among us is harmed, especially in ways that are shameful to speak of, our instinct has been to keep it in the church. To have the wrongdoer confess and be forgiven and be restored, and to consider the matter closed. We are proud of our forgiveness, and we should be, but forgiveness has been used more than once to close a case that should have gone to the law, and the person harmed has been the one told to let it go and move on. That is not a thing I enjoy saying about my own people. It is true, and it has done real damage. And there are men and women who left our church over it, and were right to. So put that man in that building. He would carry a trained instinct to blame himself, and a trained instinct to keep it inside, and a trained belief that the right end of a bad thing is quiet forgiveness, rather than telling somebody in authority. Every one of those is exactly what the man who set the trap is counting on. So what would save him? Because something would, and I want to end on it. Not toughness. He does not have any, and would not use it if he did. The first thing is the plainest thing our people own, and he would have it in his pocket the whole time without knowing what it was for. Take nothing you did not earn. We live under our means as a matter of faith. We do not chase what is not ours. We are suspicious of easy things and comfortable with going without. A plain man who understood in his first week that a stranger's generosity in that place is not the same animal as a neighbor's generosity in his district would be nearly impossible to start, because the whole machine needs a first gift accepted, and he would let it sit there. That is the entire difference. Not refusing kindness forever, refusing it for a few weeks from strangers until he could tell one kind of man from the other. At home, he never has to make that distinction because the church makes it for him. In there, nobody would. The second thing is company, and this is the part I find remarkable, because men who did long time say the exact same thing about what breaks one of these traps, and it is not force. They describe an older man who saw it happening to somebody young and did the bravest ordinary thing there is. He did not fight anybody. He simply started sitting with the young man every day, in the open, at meals and on the yard, where everyone could see, and the isolation could not hold, and the debt could not be collected in private, and the whole slow thing lost its grip for lack of darkness to work in. Then he walked the young man to somebody whose job it was to help, and stood near him while he asked. Company and daylight, and a door to the right people. Now that, I understand completely. That is a barn raising. That is what we do. When one of ours is in trouble, we do not send a man to go settle it. We show up in numbers in the open, and we stand there. It is the oldest thing we know, and it happens to be exactly the right medicine for this. And the last thing is the one he would need to be told out loud, because his own training would argue against it. If it has started, tell somebody early. Not the district, not his own conscience. Somebody in that building whose actual job it is. The instinct to search himself, to find his own fault, to keep it quiet, to forgive and move on, would all be wrong in there, and they would feel like virtue the entire time. That is the cruelest part of it. Everything that makes him good at being Amish would be turned around and used to hold him still. So I will say it plainly for any man it fits, ours or not. A trap is the fault of the man who built it, all of it, and none of it belongs to the person who walked into it not knowing. Kindness that comes too fast at somebody who has nothing is not kindness. And the thing that kills a trap like that is not strength. It is other people, in the open, in daylight, and one honest word said early to somebody who can do something about it. We have known that last part for 300 years. We just call it something else. If you want to know how our world actually works from the inside, that is what this channel is for. There is more of it than most folks would ever guess.